What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 97. Yeah, no, it's 97, not 96, right? Gosh, no, I was thinking it was 96. It's actually 97 of the overview. I'm ChanManV, and FishStix, of course, joining me. And Yiska's back again, so it's just like the three of us once again. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good, Chris. Pretty good. This is, I think, the most last minute we've ever done one of these shows. About 45 minutes ago, Chris is like, well, if we don't do it now, we're probably not going to do it at all, so let's just do it. So here we are, and there's plenty to talk about, because Stage 3 just finished up. Stage 4 is coming up in just a couple of days. Contenders just wrapped up for Korea, EU, and NA, and we're joined again by Yiska. Do you want to introduce yourself, by the way? I don't think we actually, I don't actually remember if we gave you a chance to just kind of, tell the audience, who you are and what you do too much.
Well, I used to be a writer, I guess. Though that was basically last year at this point. I'm getting back on the horse. I'll actually, quite likely that I'll edit some content tonight that will release, even though it's not really written. It's more like a discussion with a friend via text, I suppose. So I write for Winston's Lab and do some mild editing when it's required. Other than that, I really am just a Twitter analyst at this point, if we're being honest.
I mean,
I'm trying to broaden that a little bit.
You were just telling me that you're an aspiring professional Overwatch bettor, or at least it's definitely coming a career in betting with this announcement today. Is that not correct? Is that not correct?
I probably won't make a living from it, even though some people in Winston's Lab have made a living off of esports betting, but not in Overwatch. So,
a little scary.
That is scary. Is it scary? Is it really that scary, or is it actually a cool story that somebody can make a living? Right? Yeah. As long as there's not match fixing and things. What's wrong with being able to make a living off that? I mean, people day trade. I mean, that's pretty much kind of the same thing. I guess. Instead of Overwatch games, it's just the stock market, right? So, anyways. Yeah. That obviously we're going to be talking about that. It's obviously a huge bit of news that got announced today. But it's been a while since we did a show, so there are patches, and I mean we haven't even talked about the new Hanzo yet. We'll probably touch on that, and of course how that impacts the OWL. We can give our thoughts on Stage 3 that ended about a week and a half ago, and then give a preview of Stage 4 that's going to be happening in a couple days. And just all the little things, all the little news that's been going on. So before we do that, I just want to mention that this episode of the Overview is sponsored by ZipRecruiter and Wing this week. So we've got two of them this week, which is really, really cool. We'll be definitely talking about them just throughout the show. So, really, really cool that they're doing that. And, if you are familiar with them, definitely give them a shout out for sponsoring the show. But let's start off with the game. Right now, obviously, Brigitte is out in comp. I think a lot of us have been playing it for a few weeks now. And then the latest thing is just the Hanzo. Just the new Hanzo with the rapid fire is out there. And, a lot of, I guess, mixed feelings of it. But generally, I think people are starting to kind of just have more and more fun with the new Hanzo. And it's not just like, oh, this is just ridiculous. Why is Hanzo have this crazy, rapid fire kind of thing? So thoughts on first off, let's just talk about Hanzo since it's kind of like the sexy thing. Thoughts on just the new Hanzo right now out in comp? Yiska, you want to start?
A lot more fun to play with and play against. I think he may be a little overtuned right now. It's kind of too early to say at this point. His pick rate is certainly pretty absurd right now in competitive. I think probably at all tiers, but certainly at the tier that I'm playing at the high masters, low GM range, he's getting picked almost every single game. But I'm not necessarily sad about that because he's way more interesting of a character now. Scatter Arrow is way more bullshit than even something as maybe OP as Storm Arrow might be. It's still, in my opinion, way less bullshit to play against. His mobility is huge. It completely changes how you can play the character. Mm-hmm. You can put yourself in far more risky situations and not necessarily be punished for it like you used to be. I mean, Hanzo, it's very easy to dive, prior to this season. Now all of a sudden, you don't really want to dive a Hanzo. Storm Arrow can absolutely melt tanks that are diving onto Hanzo in a split second. He's much, much, much better versus Tracer. So he does much better in the dive environment, and that mobility is a huge change as well.
Yeah, I feel like... So one thing I always thought about Hanzo is that he might just be the most satisfying DPS, if you want to say that. Like, just hitting those arrow headshots is just, I don't know, like, in terms of just playability, it was always pretty crazy. And Scatter really took a lot away from that. It also feels like that this was basically what cheapened the skill cap that he had, because there are nuts Hanzos that are just, you know, it's very different to have someone that reliably hits body shots and then reliably headshots, right? That's like another Hanzo right there. So in general, I think also the I'm not sure what it's called, the shift, the you know, the
little leap
arrow that
you're talking about the sonar.
The Sonic Arrow.
Sonic Arrow, yeah, it is pretty crazy for me. I also think that theoretically, this is actually what puts him over the edge in comparison to... I've even talked to some Overwatch League players who said, we're not sure that even if Hanzo comes in, that he would be better than Junkrat for some of these maps, because Junkrat still spams the hell out of armor from Brigitte. So the question is it then better because also the tire is a lot more versatile in many ways, right? A tire is like always useful, while a dragon is only useful about half the time, which is the time that your Zarya has a graph, right? And in certain map situations. So in general, I think the Sonic Arrow gives them, because you have so much more knowledge on where the opponent is in those pro situations, I think that's actually the real buff in a sense.
Yeah, I think it was Tvik who was saying this on Twitter or in an interview or something. So for those of you that aren't necessarily aware, basically the changes to Sonic Arrow is that the duration for each arrow is slightly shorter, but the cooldown is also slightly shorter. So it basically means that you can use Sonic Arrow more frequently to keep tabs on where your opponents are. So I still don't think that that's the biggest part of this, but I guess the pros do. So what do I know? But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I definitely would like to see Hanzo. I feel like the history of Overwatch, right? We haven't seen Hanzo in the metagame very often, and you know, ever since the game was announced, I feel like Hanzo defined the game. Like, remember just seeing the dragon for the first time, and like when literally Overwatch for the very first time, Hanzo was like one of the unique aspects of the game. And so like not having seen, you know, just basically like a sniper that like what I kind of thought was a unique sniper to Overwatch for a while now. You know, it's been more of a just kind of spot or even a meme pick at times. It's going to be great, you know, being able to see it a bit more. And, you know, like you were saying, Yiska, there's something about like, I don't know, there's something about when you land an arrow and headshot an arrow that feels different than a Widow shot. You know, there's some kind of weird satisfaction to it that I think that is one of the cool things that they've designed in the game. So anyways, I think getting a chance to see that is cool. The one thing I would say about the new Hanzo thing is that I just feel like it's not right for him to be able to kill tanks the way he does. You know, that's probably the only thing that gets me about it. I don't mind the fact that he can, you know, he'll be able to fight off tracers and things that dive on, just kind of just squishier targets that dive on him. But when he can kill all the tanks at the rates at which he's been doing, or at least these great Hanzos have been doing, it kind of makes me wonder if he's overpowered, you know, because Widow doesn't have, you know, Widow has the machine gun, but it's not at this kind of level. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, do you think Hanzo should be able to be taking out, you know, Winstons and you know, even just being able to handle some divas?
I don't know. I think it's too early to say right now definitively if he's OP or not. I will say that while playing as Winston on ranked is kind of brutal right now. It's not fun. No, actually, nobody's playing Winston right now. Dive is extremely rare at this point, and I think in large part because, well, both Brigitte and because of Hanzo, you're seeing a lot less dive. But I wouldn't say he's necessarily overpowered against the comps that you're seeing right now, which are much more Reinhardt Zarya based.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt a little weird at first, but just like with everything, I think people are going to figure out how to play around this. And like as a Winston in previous seasons, if I see if I'm playing Winston and I see a Hanzo, I'm going to dive him almost as my top priority because he doesn't have mobility. I can just get in there and kill him. That's different now, and it's going to take some learning to figure that out. But I think people will adjust in time.
Also, like the jump that they gave him, the extra jump, is actually pretty huge in some situations.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, you probably should never get hit by Doomfist's ultimate or whatever. Everything that's targeted sort of on the ground, even like a Winston that uses jump to get you, I think it's basically, if you do it correctly, you're basically out of Tesla range. You do it right. So,
oh wow,
you just kite them forever. It feels like, right? These melee characters. Also, like, what is a Reinhardt going to do to you ever, other than getting you shattered in some situation? So that is definitely also something that it feels minor, but I think there's just so much outplay potential in a sense.
Mm-hmm. No, he just feels a lot better. Like like you said, like the mobility I think is a great addition to him too. Like before it just felt like you always had that weakness, like you had to be super careful with your movement. And now, it kind of sounds bad, but even just like the lesser skill players, you can make a mistake and you can still recover with by using that kind of hop. Whether it's to get away from Winston or even just like a diva bomb, right? Like sometimes just that little hop is enough just to get away from it. But one point I do want to follow up when you're talking about it's tough to play Winston, Ben. It's tough to play. I'm not sure how fun it is to play any tank right now. Maybe outside of diva. Like you've got Reinhardts that just like literally hold up shields and then maybe do Earth Shatters whenever they can, which it's kind of hard to build up an Earth Shatter given the role he's playing right now. And then Winston's just kind of getting owned and not even being played. In Orisa, just it's Orisa, right? So I mean, there's not much to do there either. Thoughts on just like the where we are with tanks right now?
I think the demise of Reinhardt in this meta is greatly exaggerated.
Okay.
I mean, Reinhardt Zarya is the standard meta comp now. Reinhardt Zarya triple support Hanzo is like the new standard, at least from what I can see and what I can tell. And being shield bashed and knocked away as Reinhardt may not feel great, but it's like I think people are overreacting a lot as to how rough it is to play Reinhardt right now. I think Muma has been quite vocal about this on his stream. He's one of my favorite main tank streamers to watch. He's playing Reinhardt all the time, and like he's just not really getting in that range of the shield bash. I mean, it sucks. Like you can't really charge as Reinhardt anymore. It's really easy to hit a charging Reinhardt out of his momentum with the shield bash. Like there's some things which feel a little bit frustrating, but I'm watching Muma play. He's got a Brigitte on his side. He's got a Zarya on his side. That gives him the his ability to move forward and swing away, throw fire strikes whenever they're off cooldown. So I honestly feel like this whole notion of playing tank is hell now is overblown a bit for sure, personally.
Yeah, I think there are these fringe cases where you just get chain CC'd and it can feel very annoying. But it sort of reminds me of back in WoW in the early arena days where you had mace stun, and then there was a weapon that had a certain proc chance called Storm Herald that also had a mace stun, but wasn't on the same cooldown. So you could theoretically get mace stunned and then into Storm Herald, and you would sit there for like 7 seconds and go like, I really want to play this game. And then it comes up again and whatever. So that was ridiculous in the same sense, but now it's a lot more predictable in a sense because you know exactly what Brigitte is doing to you, right? So I think also the problem usually is if something is very oppressive before you learn the concepts around it, right? So basically, what Brigitte does is it gives you a sort of say or danger zone for you to be in. So for instance, some concepts, it's just like, okay, so either Brigitte has used shield bash around you and then you can shatter, or she's out of range and then you can shatter. That's just a prerequisite to shattering now in comp games and certainly in pro games too. So unless you have internalized these concepts, of course it's going to be annoying that basically reliably Brigitte can stalk your shadows and reliably on reaction time, even online, stun your shadows. It's right. That feels disempowering, but only as long as you haven't learned those fundamental concepts to counter her or play around her.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah. Well, one thing they have been at least talking about in terms of Brigitte is just changing, nerfing her a little bit, and that's kind of what we see on PTR right now. If we talk about at least the latest PTR, and they changed it like twice in a week. It was kind of pretty quick between the patch on the 3rd and the patch on the 7th. And the thing that they changed with Brigitte is that the max armor now per player is down 50. It went from 150 to 100, which is huge. And then the cooldown too for shield bash is longer now. So think this is enough? I mean, this is a good change for you guys think?
I think it's definitely putting us in the right direction.
Yeah.
I'm happy about it. Is it enough? I think it might be, honestly. Like, I'm still of the camp of people overreact to every balance change ever, and that people just need to chill out a little bit and kind of just wait and see. Obviously, some changes have been way too significant. Brig does seem probably overpowered right now, but going from 150 to 100 for her ult is a big deal. And also shield bash from 5 to 6 seconds is a really big deal. So I think that those tunes are definitely in the right direction and might very well be enough.
Okay. Let's see. Another change that they made too is Ana. I don't know what you guys think of Ana right now in the meta game that's currently on the ladder. But basically no longer impacts allies with full health. That's like, okay, not that big a deal. And the ammo increased from 10 to 14, which actually is a pretty big deal. Like just having her just have a much bigger clip. Is Ana really good in this meta? Like, I mean, I still feel like it's a Zen and Lucio, or you still see the Mercies too, but it's basically still those three that you're seeing a bunch of, with Ana and Amora, still kind of being less picked. What do you guys think?
It's honestly, it's a better meta for Ana than previous metas for sure, because you can slot in Ana either for the Zen or the Mercy in some rare cases. Definitely points like first point Numbani when you're playing defense. Ana has always been good here because you can kind of stack her in the top left corridor where she has lines of sight blockers where she can kind of hide from dive. She can legitimately replace Zenyatta in situations like that. Anti-heal is still good. In a more static tank comp, I guess, meta where you have Rhines and Zaryas all the time, it's a little bit easier to just power heal those characters a bit more. I've seen way more Ana this season than like the last 2 or 3 seasons, for sure. And whenever I see an Ana on my team, I'm not, in previous seasons, it's like, please switch, you're throwing, I'm reporting you.
Right.
It's not like that. It's absolutely not like that anymore. So Ana's already in a better place just by the nature of the compositions we're seeing, I think. And these updates will help push her even more into relevancy. Yeah, I mean, the reloading is a bitch when you're Ana, so including increasing the clip size it seems like a good change to me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure if we will see them more in pro play because of that. Because currently you have or I guess in stage 3 you had some Hanamura stuff or whatever, first point defense or these types of things, right? Where you would deploy her there, or I guess in some cases on Volskaya. So in these cases, it was like, okay, so when you don't need as much movement and you have terrain to sort of shuffle around, then it was okay. Even though most of the time these comps aren't really, like comps you pick to full hold, but rather to sort of, waste as much time as possible. So I'm not sure if Anna is getting out of that part, but it's definitely not a troll pick anymore in solo queue or something like that you could legitimately be upset about when someone picks it. Especially, like, always my favorite is like if it's not even a one-trick Anna that you get, but it's some guy that got bored of all the other supports and just goes like, yeah, why not Anna on attack?
That's the worst, right?
Root.
The most common person
Not
who
even
picks
good
on
at
him,
it.
by the way, is the DPS main who's forced to play support.
That's true.
Those types of
The
people
widow.
always go on a, yes, I'm looking at you, John. I see you in chat. I'm calling you out.
Yeah, it's the widow player that ends up getting put on honor, right? And it's like, I can still snipe, but heal instead. Yeah, but it'll be nice to see more Ana. I think just more of a mix. Now we have 3 supports. It's not really 3 supports. It's like Brigitte and 2 supports, basically. But it was always a very Zen heavy meta, so it'll be nice to be able to get Ana in there and see a little variety. But okay, so I guess, in terms of the game, I think it's still a lot to be figured out. Obviously, once it gets out into, OWL and we're seeing some of the pro matches, I think stuff becomes a bit clearer too. So why don't we talk about some OWL centric news here. But before I do, I just want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors today, ZipRecruiter. Those of you not familiar with ZipRecruiter, or those of you that own like some type of storefront yourself, ZipRecruiter is that have a business that are looking to hire people. ZipRecruiter is a great job website that does a good job of like combining or aggregating a bunch of platforms for you. So if you're used to using like 5 different job websites to try to find that candidate for you, or even posting on it, ZipRecruiter kind of combines all those into just like one website, and you're able to track from a bunch of these different sites. And many, like 80% of the people on ZipRecruiter, I believe, find their candidates through ZipRecruiter when using it. And you can actually use it right now for free if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/overview and just sign up right now, and you can just get started right away, and you can just check out the interface. I've used it a couple times now, and it's like really, really nice. Like I've been on a few job websites, like Upwork and things like that, and ZipRecruiter is like really, really nice. So yeah, check that out, and give them a shout out too if you see them or are in contact with them for whatever reason for sponsoring the show. Okay, so news. All right, big news. The finals of OWL is announced, and it's going to be at the Barclay Center in New York. Is that fair? I mean, come on, guys. I mean, New York is obviously the favorite already, and then now it's going to be in New York too, so they're going to have the home field advantage here.
It'll be hype as fuck. That's what it's going to be, Chris. This is going to be so hype because, let's be real, New York is almost definitely going to win, and that home crowd is going to love it so much. I've been watching the videos that like Mr. Bitter and Slasher have been posting from the NYXL viewing parties. Like, that home crowd is going to be insane.
Man, yeah,
it's gonna be awesome.
It definitely will be. Are you guys gonna go?
I'm gonna try. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yiska,
yeah,
you gonna?
Probably. No, probably not. No.
Somebody pays you to cover it. Maybe you end up there. Yeah. But
we need a few more ZipRecruiter sponsors.
That's first. Right. Exactly. No, I think the Barclay Center is a good choice. Definitely a nice venue. Other sports hold their events there too. So. As the first venue for the finals, it's going to be pretty hype. It'd be awesome to see what, this is the first time we'll actually get a chance to have a big live venue and see what the attendance can be. I'm assuming it's going to be sold out. I'd be shocked if it's not sold out. Yeah, but yeah, New York, it's going to be in Brooklyn. So yeah, it might just have their hometown just win there, given that they're the huge favorite right now. But should be exciting to see, and can't wait to see what the viewership is going to be like for that too, man. It's going to be awesome. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, so another bit of news. So KyKy, obviously left Dallas, as head coach, in kind of, I don't know, not so great fashion, at least a lot of the reaction from the community. But now he's joining Houston, so immediately picked up by Houston. Obviously, a lot of people still think very highly of KyKy. Particular Tyrong, I mean, he was like quoted as saying recently, he's, KyKy is like one of the greatest coaches ever. So yeah, thoughts on KyKy? Is he a better fit at Houston than Dallas? And how good is this for Houston?
I think the main thing for me is that he didn't seem to be the right fit for Dallas because they needed a strong cultural leader who could not just give them the right strategies and help the players understand the game better and help them break down their scrims and look at tape and things like that, but also somebody to keep the morale up, someone to make sure that the infighting was not happening. Clearly that did not happen under his leadership at Dallas as the head coach there. I think probably every team has different things that they need out of their head coach. You know, other teams might not actually need that from their head coach. They might have it from other places within the org, but Dallas definitely needed that. But the one thing you can't say about KyKy is, regardless of the last 4 months since OWL started, where Dallas Fuel has underperformed everyone's expectations, he was also the head coach of Team USA at the Overwatch World Cup. He was also the head coach of Envious during one of the, Envious was successful for a very long time, but during a very good streak for them. So he has that background in doing great things for the players and the strategies that they employ. So I think if he's in a position where he doesn't necessarily need to be like a super strong leader, but maybe just focuses a bit more on the game, I think he's going to do just fine in that environment.
Yeah, I agree. And it also makes perfect sense that if you're a former player, that then you are, more like the player, more like the analyst type of coach that, that doesn't necessarily create structures. Now, the thing is, I think almost, obviously we have no idea what Dallas was like before, or especially like in the Envious days. But the thing is, I would have actually liked if he already sort of foresaw this issue coming up, because here's the problem, right? He was pretty close with his players, is my understanding, and I'm not sure if that works with the limited amount of stuff he had in comparison, and just with the high amount of egos he had, right? So it's also quite interesting to me that he had to go from Dallas, right? You could have done like an assistant coach position, or could have gotten someone in and they would have shared head coach positions or whatever. Like, it could have been totally possible. But it's quite interesting that this didn't happen. Now, going to Outlaws is probably the perfect fit if you think about it, simply because of the stuff they did in the US World Cup. Mm-hmm. And it's quite interesting, actually, if you think about it. The more apparent fit would have initially been Arrow, right? The first coach of FNL GFE. Mm-hmm. So if the news was coming out that Arrow was going to leave before the KyKy announcement happens, well, I'm putting my money on Arrow joining the Outlaws in this case, right? Because then they have someone that, like, I think Arrow has been described to me as someone that creates a lot of structure and, just is very good at compartmentalizing practice, and he's someone that
of it.
Exactly. So the interesting thing for me is here that this might become a little bit of a switcheroo now that KyKy is on the Outlaws, the former FNL GFE. I think it's quite possible that we know Arrow is in Overwatch League somewhere, right? Now, it wouldn't surprise me if that was Dallas, and I have no inside sources, but that would make sense to me.
That's an interesting speculation. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that does make sense. They're still waiting. Obviously, I don't know if they're interviewing right now or what, but definitely no signs of any coach being hired quite yet for Dallas, and probably be good for them to get one just as soon as they can, at least for this stage, just to try to get some kind of good structure in there, just moving forward. But yeah, I think KyKy, I mean, like you guys said, I think he's a great fit where he is for many reasons. I think that KyKy's still capable of being a head coach somewhere, but I think that, taking a break from just having all that pressure on you as being a head coach is probably going to be good for him, because it was pretty stressful over there, in Dallas for him. So I think this is going to end up just being extremely good for him and his career, as well as I think it's just gonna be great for Houston. Houston definitely seems to have a team full of people that just get along. Like, do we ever hear about people not getting along in Houston and having any kind of issues like that? I don't think I've heard anything ever like about that kind of thing.
Only drama is Mendo just sitting on the bench.
Mendo still gets I guess maybe there's a little
people,
bit of
people like to bring that up all the time, but I don't even know if there's like an issue there or not.
Right. But yeah, so overall, Houston making some good moves. Hopefully it'll just reflect on their, how they end up doing in stage 4. Okay, next thing, not too much with the World Cup, right? I have World Cup here. Groups announced. But outside of that, we don't have kind of want to move on to OWL if we can get to it.
All I'm going to say on this is I got to go to Korea, man. I have to see Korea play on their home turf.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Dude, I have to. So I think I'm going to, like, no matter what the hell I'm doing at that time, I'm just going to go.
You're just going to go, really? Okay.
Dude, yeah. I want to.
Okay.
So
yeah, I mean that group too isn't it heavily Asian? Countries here. Let me look. I forget.
Russia, Finland, Taipei, Chinese Taipei, Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of Asian countries in that, so it's gonna be.
Yeah, you're right.
A lot. There might be a lot of people flying out to that one, to be honest. But yeah, Russia, Finland. I think that's gonna be pretty interesting for going for second. And Japan, right? Japan surprised a lot of us last time. I wonder if they're going to be able to do the same. I don't even think. I forget how Hong Kong and Chinese Taipei. Was it Chinese Taipei that was pretty good last year? They were.
Everyone thought they were going to be good.
Yeah, like in scrims, right? Right, in scrims they were saying they were amazing, and then they just kind of got nervous. I think once it came time to playing the matches on stage. So yeah, this group's going to be pretty competitive here outside of South Korea. That second spot's going to be highly contested. See if Finland can live up to just all the talent they have on their team. They seem to never perform as good as they can. Kind of going through the rest of them, we got U.S. and Canada again, like in the same. What's going on with that? Like, why do we always have to be with like Canada? It seems that to always happen, but it looks to be pretty clear that they're the favorites in this group.
This group just doesn't seem even close to as strong. Like Finland, Russia, Korea in one group is pretty insane. The US, this one's basically just US and Canada, or like no one else is really going to be. Norway had a pretty decent showing last year, but
yeah, they're not on par with that. Yeah, US, I guess, kind of got lucky this time. The US, I generally draw hard draws, whether it's at BlizzCon itself or even in the group stages. So I think they did pretty well this time around. All right, then we got the Thailand bracket here. That's Sweden, Thailand, got the crowd favorite Australia in here again, Spain, Denmark, China. And so it's going to be, this is another pretty competitive group here.
Yeah.
I think there's probably 3, maybe 4 that could contend for that, just the top 2 spots. Sweden's always the question mark. Like they seem to always underperform. We'll have to see if they are able to kind of put it together this year, because they should win their groups. Like they have so much talent that every time that they're together, they should win their groups, but they don't. They seem to just eke in there, get that second spot and get through, but never live up to expectations. And then the last group. Oh, any comments on this group?
I feel like this group. I even think 5 teams have
5.
Have a
really?
chance.
Which one are those 2?
So. Denmark and Spain, definitely. Like, if you think of the talent in Denmark, like, Denmark has Calyx, theoretically, the Fran.
Yeah. that's worth the ticket right there, man.
Right? Like, there's a lot of, I think Craggy of Hurricane is so, Snillo is Swedish, but no, Craggy definitely. So, I'm sure there's like 6 people you would definitely recognize in the Danish team. And then in Spain also has Doc. And you can bring Bromas out and he somehow always performs at World Cups.
Yeah.
Harry Hook, of course.
Harry Hook, yeah.
Yep.
Line Pro, what's his name? Other guy.
The guy.
Um,
Oh, I know who you're talking about too. I'm having a little brain fart too.
Philly plays for Philly.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on,
Uh,
Neptuno.
Neptuno, yeah,
No,
exactly.
Neptuno, right?
Yeah, that's a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
solid team.
Australia obviously convinced last year, so I think that's China and Sweden definitely have the potential. So that could be 5, yeah.
Yeah, going to be a great one. And then finally, the France group here that has UK, Germany, Poland, Netherlands, Italy, and France. I mean, to be honest, I think this is the weakest one just in terms of the best teams. So, but
Definitely seems weak.
Could make for a very competitive group though, because of that.
I feel like UK and France kind of have a pretty strong stranglehold on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Well, definitely going to see more. We still have all the committees and coaches and everything being, nominated or people, making their I don't know, campaign as to getting into these committees. So I'm sure that's going to happen in the pretty near future here. But kind of moving on, big news today. So this is the thing about the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down this case with sports betting, and or at least banning of sports betting. So sports betting now, is legal in the U.S., but I think it's going to come down to like which states decide to rule that it's okay to just have sports betting in. But from at least a national standpoint, federal standpoint, it's not banned. So yeah, thoughts on this in terms of impact on Overwatch and just esports in general?
I'm excited. I can't really speak with a lot of experience because I've literally never done sports betting before. It's basically illegal and been all illegal in the entire U.S. except for Las Vegas and maybe like Atlantic City. So I've never been able to do it, but I do also know at the same time that if you flash back to 3-4 years ago, before there was this crackdown on paid fantasy sports in the United States, we had DraftKings, we had whatever, I forget the other one. Yeah. We had like all of those fantasy platforms sponsoring and just funneling a ton of money into esports. So in terms of like, I guess, does esports even really need that much more money right now? It's a little crazy, but I would still say just from
use more money then.
I mean, just from if you're looking at this strictly from like an industry perspective, I think this has to be a good thing, right? Like we should be able. I think it's actually kind of ridiculous that I can't gamble as an adult in the U.S. So I'm excited for this. I think it's going to just grow the industry. More jobs, more investment, more marketing, more everything is going to go into esports if people are allowed to make more money from betting. So yeah, I think it's good.
Yes, like as a European, that's always very strange. So sort of culturally to understand how this doesn't happen in the US, right? So in my age group, I would say those guys, and a lot of guys obviously very interested in soccer, I would think a very healthy amount either bets or has some sort of fantasy league going. And I feel like there's some like things that it's always in a conversation. If I'm going out for a beer with mates, it's always like, oh, I bet like $100 on this and then $100 on this.
Right.
It's like, or euros rather. And it's not frowned upon. It's a little strange that if someone goes too overboard in terms of the amount that he bet. But if someone goes like, oh yeah, I have like 6 different bets that have to work out, and that's actually what most people do. It's like a 6 bets in the sense that you have to get the tendency of 6 consecutive games correctly in order to get the amount right. And this happens all the time here, and is not frowned upon at all. It's just a fun talking point. It's also the Schadenfreude in the sense to see when this doesn't happen for your friend, and to be live there. It's part of the action of watching those matches. They're all happening at the same time. So I don't know. It's very strange culturally because it's so accepted here. It's just part of definitely my generation.
Yeah. It's always been a little bit odd. I mean, there's the thing with betting or sports betting is that there's all these bad things that come along with it that don't have to happen. It's just they just tend to happen. And these kind of things include match fixing and throwing games, and obviously affecting the integrity of the actual sport or esport. And I think that's the part of things that are frowned upon. When it comes to betting, it's just like automatically you get that connotation that's what betting implies. And like you said, Ben, that's not the case. Like, it can totally be a very positive thing and bring a ton of money to the space, a ton of interest to the space. Like, forget the actual dollars. I mean, it could actually just be pure interest that leads to a bunch of dollars with like advertisements and things like that too. So
yeah, I mean, you're 10 times more invested in the game if you have 100 euros on the line. Like,
yeah. I mean,
I've seen it so many times. People just go crazy when there's money on the line.
Right. And it's like, I bet the NFL's doing, like, I'm sure their bottom line's gone up quite a bit too ever since fantasy has been just huge, right? And these fantasies, that whole market in itself has taken off. So, I think we're going to be seeing that. With this type of ruling, and it'll be interesting to see how the states rule, like, individually. But we should be seeing more. We should be seeing more betting sites and things like that. I still think it's going to be a little tricky because some states will allow it, some states won't. So who can participate in it? You'll still have a little bit of that dynamic, but
yeah. Also, Blizzard, it seems quite
too.
anti-betting. I mean, I don't even. Oh yeah, I do remember what it was. It was Overwatch Atlantic Showdown. All the Fnatic players had to put a big thing of black tape over their Betaway or Betway sponsor logos. Like, Blizzard is very, very anti-betting. So yeah.
No, they've always been that. It's not even just Overwatch, right? It's just like,
I think it's it's just yeah. There's been problems with match fixing in previous Blizzard games, to say the least. So
yeah, that would be a pretty big day whenever we see betting in Overwatch allowed, and that would be pretty monumental, or at least promoted by Blizzard. That'd be crazy day. But yeah,
I mean, you already can.
You can.
Like, I personally already did, and I know there are some guys that had like crazy bets already around the time of the Atlantic Showdown. Like, I think, I don't want to throw him like under the bus or anything, but I think he was pretty public about this, that like in Pro Talk anyway, was like Faz who put like $1,000 on some outcome and then hit it, because it's just like that's just the culture here. Also, if you're obviously a big poker player in I guess Europe, you're also pretty big into betting most of the time. So I don't know. It's just part of the culture here, and it's just part of the entire circuit. You always have like some small side bets going anyway, with just pocket change.
Yeah. So in terms of esports, like, how many match fixing scandals have we had in EU? Like, you guys, I definitely hear about a ton, obviously, in Korea and things like that, but in EU, like, how many have we had that have just been major? Because that's the thing to worry about, right? It's just like, okay, we make it just like happening everywhere, and you're gonna have these people that are just gonna offer crazy amounts of money to players to throw games. I mean, it's just going to happen, and it's going to be up to the players to say no. But I don't know. I guess the leagues do pay the players well enough now that it's not like a starving, StarCraft 2 player or StarCraft player or whatever that literally, get offered $10,000, $20,000, and that's a lot of money for them, right? And they're able to do that. I mean, now these base salaries are probably would make something like that at least not quite as possible, but maybe it's 100,000, like maybe it's 500,000. Then on a bet that's going to make them obviously a lot more. Then we'd be having to face a kind of similar thing. So, anyways, my question is just like, if it is more accepted, just in Europe and just these other places, like how often do we see scandals?
I think Europeans are generally smart enough to get caught. Like, in a sense, because if you think about the for instance, take the CS:GO thing, right?
Yeah.
We all know that I buy power for skins, right?
Yep.
We all pretty much also know that there is good reasons to believe that this was the case for Virtus Pro. Virtus Pro is still a team in the CS:GO space, right? So, like, some things is just also by the nature of how these infos go out, it's like, yeah, I obviously it's happening. Like, I have no illusions that this is happening in Europe. I have no illusions that it might just be happening more in Europe because of this established culture. But at the same time, for the Overwatch League, I feel like it's not even the money that's sort of like keeping players from doing it. It's just like the actual money behind the league. Because if this comes out, you're going to jail, 100%. And you're going to be slapped by the book. It's over for you at this point. You're getting the wrath of the lawyers of Fortune 500 companies at this point. You're done, right? Yeah. So I feel like this is a good repellent.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, severity is obviously going to be much, much worse, and that the fear of that could be enough, just to keep people in line. But so it's going to be a new age, like this new age of esports. Obviously comes a new age and in just betting too. So be interesting to see what happens the rest of this year in terms of that. Okay, let's talk some Overwatch League. So stage 3. So stage 3 ended a week and a half ago, and we haven't got any chance to even really talk about the results and just our overview on the stage itself. Obviously, congratulations to NYXL on winning that stage, repeating, and Boston obviously had a sensational season 2, but in the end, the NYXL wasn't definitely wasn't messing around. They came looking like themselves and ready to go, and I think that whenever we see NYXL in that kind of form, they're just unbeatable. Like, I don't think there's anybody in the league that can beat them when they play like that. So yeah.
So this was like this was a full week ago at this point. We're a little bit late to talk about it,
of course.
But I just want to re-emphasize how unexpected and ridiculous it is that the top 4 teams out of the top 4, there was only one Korean squad in, of course, NYXL. Neither London Spitfire or Seoul Dynasty made it into the top 4. Instead, we had teams like LA Gladiators, who were kind of in the middle to bottom of the pack a few stages ago. So I think before you even get into the games and the results themselves, like, this alone is super interesting, super cool. Boston is on an absolute tear. Valiant, they made the switch. They got Custa this last stage. They're on an absolute tear. Gladiators blew my mind. They beat in the regular course of the stage 3. They beat both NYXL and London Spitfire, right? Mm-hmm. So like, Gladiators are looking on another level. Like, this alone, I think, is one of my favorite parts of this playoff.
Yeah. Your take?
I think this is the stage where. So I think no Korean team was in ideal circumstances internally. And it speaks to the quality of NYXL that they still only got beaten by Boston. That to me, like, it's pretty obvious to me that they were. I mean, I'm not sure if sandbagging is the correct term here, but that they were not giving, not giving 100% and taking it sort of easy because they were experiencing some burnout. And then when it counted, when they were, when someone waves $100,000 in front of their faces, can just step it up. And that quality was also pretty apparent to me. It was perfectly clear to me that this was going to happen in the final. And I also thought that it was going to be pretty stompy in that sense. Now, the other 2 Korean teams, I think that was
that's the big story, right?
Yeah, they are currently having their envious moment. Being far away from home, trying to find out how to work in the new meta, probably didn't make the right moves in the transfer season, because all these other teams, so LA Valiant and to an extent definitely Gladiators, made moves that not only very much improved them, but they also made moves that improved them to a sense that they now can enjoy a honeymoon period. Which, if there's a thing such as a honeymoon period, then London Spitfire and Seoul Dynasty have experienced the other side of the spectrum right now, right?
Yeah.
So, while I think that just the the gravitational pull of their skill level will eventually shift them up again. Though I'm not too sure about Seoul. Like for instance, Birdring coming back and hopefully like coming back into form and sort of regenerating will be that what London needs. But at the same time, it's not just Birdring having a slump. It's also just the entire team seemingly being very burnt out in a sense. And I also think that now all those changes that Susie has been implementing, such as moving to a house or whatever, that will grab them and will move them up. But yeah, this is just I think, to be honest, to be sort of like a party pooper, this is more like the LA teams got into the playoffs because they didn't have problems at the time, while the other teams that are theoretically better than them or have been proven to be better in the first two stages just had their burnout moments. And I think it will revert eventually.
How much of it was just the meta? Like these stages obviously have different maps, and each map's gonna, or at least you'll have a set of map that really favors a certain team. We saw that with Houston, like in stage 1, right? We saw what changing maps happened to that team. So was that the issue here with Spitfire and Seoul? I mean, particularly Spitfire, because they had I think the biggest drop off, between the two stages. Was it an issue with maps for them?
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah,
not sure what it comes to. I mean, obviously, as Yiska's saying, not having Birdring consistently is a big deal for them. I would say more that than like anything about the meta in particular, right? Because there weren't huge sweeping changes this stage, I feel.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's Blizzard World, but people figured out Blizzard World pretty quickly, I think, after that. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think the Shock actually ended up having a pretty nice push there at the end too. When they got their full roster and things started clicking for them. They almost got in there. If it wasn't for the two LA teams really winning the games that they needed to win, the matches they needed to win at the end, Shock might have actually snuck in there. So pretty good stage for them too.
This wasn't in the script, but they now have Boston's old analyst Krusty has joined that squad, which is an interesting tidbit as well.
Yeah. After almost having a perfect season at Boston, just losing one of the the key members of their their coaching staff, to Shock. It was a shock. I was really, really surprised, but apparently it's something that was planned for a while. So Boston even let him be like really search for a new job for a while now. So nothing huge there in terms of drama or anything like that. But yeah, so the biggest thing I think with London, how much do you think this kind of off season makes them feel vulnerable? Just like you don't have that kind of mystique that New York has. Like New York still has that intimidating feel when you go into it. Forget the players themselves, but they just don't lose. Like teams that just don't lose, you kind of have that Tiger Wood effect, kind of thing. You're just already intimidated going into matches like that, and sometimes you lose because of that little edge. London, I feel like London still don't have that anymore. So they might have to earn that back. And given that we only have 5 weeks left until the actual league playoffs, can they establish that kind of dominance again? What do you guys think?
I think Wizard Young has read the strategical equivalent of the Kama Sutra. They do things to teams that these teams don't know that this could be done to them, right? They're being pushed into places where it's just I didn't know I sucked at that, but I guess I do, right? So I feel like they really I wouldn't. So let me give you a fringe example. I'm perfectly sure that there are thoughts going through Wizard Young's mind, if we push from here, this opponent Widowmaker player has a weakness of flicking right side upward. So let's go here. Shit like this is happening. I'm pretty sure that's actually the case. So
okay,
I'm not sure if that's strong enough to overrule the entire strategy he's had. And this is a very fringe concept, but I'm pretty sure this has crossed his mind at some point and has found some applications, right?
Yeah.
Just also like in the sense how they exploit opponent teams is just very novel, and that also happened to Boston in a sense. So I think that just if an opponent coach knows more about your team in certain aspects than your coaching staff does, guess you're just going to lose, especially against a team that has so much high caliber players. It's like at this point, it's just crazy, and they seem to have so much resources left, so much built up quality that they can just take it easy and just win 9 games still in the entire. Like, of course, they make it close. I guess when it's 2-2, you just step on the pedal and just, give them a little bit of that.
Make it exciting for us fans.
Yeah,
something to talk about. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, why don't we just maybe close out stage 3? What are the biggest storylines for you guys? Favorite storylines, and then we'll take a look at stage 4. Ben?
My favorite thing in stage 3 was seeing LA Gladiators really come out of their shells. Just from a personal fanboy perspective, I've always been a fan of this team. Fissure joining has been an amazing revelation for them, but I really have been impressed with Hydration and Surefour in particular. I think Surefour's flexibility and his dominance on Widow really was one of the propelling factors for them. So I know that I know they only got to the playoffs and didn't do that well in the playoffs. It's not like they won the whole season, but I think their turnaround from middle of the pack at best, maybe like bottom side of the middle of the pack to a playoff contending team was awesome to see.
Yeah. For me, there's like 2 storylines. There's like Boston, obviously, after their Black Swan event, if you want, sort of revealing that they took that deep blow and then had mistakes just seemingly swapping in. And then that sort of also revealed to us what this team is built around. So sort of like a modular thing where they're very cognizant of what everyone is doing in the team. That just allowed them to, plug and play certain players or allocate resources in terms of calling structure here and, shift it around and suddenly became the best team, at least over the normal games outside of playoffs, right? The other big storyline for me personally was Architect. Like, this kid has been nuts for a while, right? So Volamel and I have been really enjoying this kid for, I think it must have been already season 2 in Apex. He was always one of the sickest Genji Blade users in the game. Now, obviously, we couldn't have anticipated that he is also apparently super crazy on hit scan. And on top of that is a wholesome character. So, I don't know, this kid is just also see how it all comes together. I think the biggest revelation shock obviously has been Architect. We thought it would have been Sinatra, and yes, sort of he's mildly overshadowed by Architect. I think Sinatra also had a pretty good performance. So Dante definitely still has some room on that team. And then I even think Super has some more potential left in the tank. He didn't hit like the meteor I was predicting him to be like. So I thought he would hit the ground like Muma did in stage 1. And I think he has the potential to. So maybe we will see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the effect of Super. I mean, I don't want to understate that. I mean, you did see a difference in him, and I mean, he was calling too, right? I mean, I think you saw a significant difference when he came. But yeah, that'd be awesome to see if they can even reach a higher point with just even working them together.
He was replacing Nomi after all, of course.
Yeah. You got a significant upgrade there. For me, it's the obvious one. For me, it's just the Boston. I mean, I think that Boston has really established themselves as the second best team. Clearly, not even close. They are for sure the second best team right now in the Overwatch League. And they're a team just full of, I don't want to say overachievers because that's not really giving them enough credit either, but definitely underestimated team. And it's kind of a common storyline, but it continues on even now. It's your average Overwatch League fan probably still thinks that Boston is somewhat just they don't know those players, not nearly as well. And you know, Calyx is like freaking amazing. You know, like you've got a team full of like Amsu and Striker, and I mean, they're all literally the top 3 in their positions. And it just happens that New York has like the top 2 in every one of those positions, and it's like, you know, they ended up you know, making them look bad. I think Boston didn't play that as well either in the finals, the grand finals. So it was you know, obviously very, very one-sided in that 3-0. But, you know, leading up to it, I mean, they dominated the Gladiators going into it. And I thought it was going to be a pretty epic final, but then, you know, we kind of obviously had a one-sided. So, but for them, you know, after having what happened with Dreamcast Rapping and them just being able to recover with almost a perfect stage, that's like, you know, kind of dream scenario. I mean, you couldn't even imagine that happening. So, you know, kudos to them, their organization. Obviously, they're you know, flexible enough to be able to react to things, very, you know, just very, very difficult situations like that, and that's, you know, that's a sign of a great organization. So yeah, I think that, and you know, I would say like the same thing with the Shock. I think the Shock's push at the end was probably the thing that I was keeping an eye on the most. It was just like, oh my god, I'm gonna go on a limb. I think it was like the last episode or the episode before, and say I think the Shock's gonna get in. Like if they went completely out and everything else works out for them, they're gonna get in, and they almost did, just really, really close. But Gladiators obviously ended up clutching it in. So stage 4. So why don't we talk about that? Preview that. What do we think is going to happen here? You know, like this is where the overall standings start to really matter, right? Like we're not just talking about stages anymore. So if we're looking at the overall standings, I mean, you can take a look here. We're playoffs is playoffs is what, top 8? It's top 8, right? So the cutoff's right here. So there's a pretty big cutoff right here. It's just a matter of, I think, the seed. So I guess, the question to start at the bottom, is the Shock going to make it in?
Is it actually top 8, real quick? Like, isn't it top 6? I'm not sure.
The top 6 or top 8?
I'm trying to remember.
Chat
should know this.
Okay.
We should know this.
I know, we should totally
We're the podcasters.
I know. It's so bad. I just haven't thought about the playoffs, like, since the very, very beginning. I remember a lot of teams get in, so maybe it was the top 6, because
isn't it? Can you even say top 6? Because there's some things with like divisions, like the first of each division get in, or something like this. Like the first of each division is set into a different bracket, and then there's 4 more teams. So to even say top 6 is like.
Yeah, but I think it works out though, right? Like because the top in the Pacific, they're gonna get in, right? Like these. Like it only matters when like one division like literally takes up all the spots, and then, you know, and then there's one like
close enough though.
Out. Yeah, it's pretty darn close to that. So I think that's I think it's fine. So yeah, what is it again? Is it top 6?
Yeah.
It's top.
Chat consensus says top 6.
Okay, top 6.
All knowing Twitch chat. Praise the Twitch chat.
So top 6. With top 6, then we're gonna get like definitely a little bit more interesting here. With I mean, this middle area right here is highly in high contention. And I think even the Shock might have like a very, very small outside chance that they can just get really, really hot here. But probably not. It's probably going to be between.
They have to win the stage, basically.
Yeah. I mean, even Gladiators and Outlaws, they pretty much have to get pretty hot here too. And I don't know if I see that right now.
It's mathematically possible, but it's like very, 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 very small. Yeah.
For Shock, right? Yeah.
For Shock, yeah. Because just look at it. Like Houston and Gladiators would have to completely crumble and not get much wins at all, right? Basically, pull a Shanghai stage, right? But yeah, I don't think that's actually going to happen.
Yeah, I don't see the Gladiators. Definitely Gladiators. I'd be completely shocked if that happened. If it were to happen, it would probably happen to the Outlaws before it happens to the Gladiators. And I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about the Outlaws, to be honest. Like, I think they struggled this last stage. I mean, wasn't Lynx. I mean, that wasn't the Lynxer I saw in the first 2 stages, that's for sure. So he was having some issues. Obviously, Jake was, I think training in certain role, or certain new heroes and trying to get better at heroes. So it was more of a building up stage than it was a stage that you really try to make a huge push for. So with this stage, I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect with this kind of new meta. Do you see them doing better?
Well, speaking of the new meta, Chris, There's a
Nobody
massive elephant in the room that we have not addressed yet, which is nobody knows which patch this is going to be on.
That's right. Exactly.
I would bet serious money that we're going to have the new Hanzo in there and Brigitte. Some people are apparently unsure if new Hanzo is actually going to be in stage 4 at all. The other question is, will we get Brigitte as she is on live right now, or will it be Brigitte with some kind of tuning? Because there's the PTR changes. What about Ana? Now, if you go look at the Ana PTR changes, will those squeeze in before the stage 4 starts? Tuesdays are patch day, so tomorrow we'll probably be finding out if these changes are going to live. I would suspect that the Brigitte change will go to live. I would think so. But then does it go to OWL with very, 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 very limited testing on live? Unsure. Like, nobody knows. But it's spurred this extremely impassioned conversation on Reddit. If you go and look at the competitive Overwatch subreddit, many of the top posts of the last week or two have been, Blizzard needs to have the live patch on OWL. We're not going to be interested if it's not the live patch. People are talking about this during contenders. Like, this is on such an old patch. It's not interesting. So on one hand, I understand you want to have a patch that's tested, that's balanced, that doesn't have bugs. That's the most important thing. It can't have any bugs that will hurt the integrity of the game itself. But on the other hand, I'm also of the mind of, like, we don't want to go an entire 5-week stage with a patch that's like really old. Like, that's going to kill the hype. People are going to be so much less inclined to tune in. It would not be a good situation. So yeah, nobody knows what we're going to get just yet.
To me, the balance argument is valid in itself, but is it very hypocritical, because here's also the balance argument, right? So you introduce a patch so the balance team patches around Brigitte being in competitive, right? Or in the game. So the game is balanced around Brigitte being in the game. So obviously, like, in an ecosystem, all those factors sort of have interdependencies, right? So the population of one animal will rise or fall. Like, so for instance, the apex predator of traces is Brigitte. So you balance Tracer around these things, right? That didn't happen. They just cut out Brigitte and gave us exactly those circumstances, which they deemed, yes, this ecosystem is fine. So how does that work? That obviously, that either you're saying, oh yeah, our vision of balance is, it is possible for us to release a patch that is fine-tuned towards Brigitte being in and not having her in, because there's such a big... It doesn't add up to me. So in general, I think the balance argument is fine, but hasn't been done in this way in Overwatch League whatsoever. Yeah. The bug thing is definitely a problem, especially because of the LAN client thing, right? We know that characters react very differently. Like, even if it doesn't really impact gameplay on some levels, it's, for instance, if you're Winston, your Tesla gun ticks way more often. It's a sort of different feel. Or obviously, Widow was sort of put into the meta simply because of LAN clients in many ways. First off, so I feel like the unless there is a pretty big balance, a pretty big bug that they can't fix on the LAN client, and it's easy to see how that could happen. Like, for instance, what if the E from Hanzo unloads instantly?
Yeah, right.
Yikes.
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
So obviously you can't have him in then, right? If he shotguns basically a Winston, right? And there's no counterplay there then. If you can't work around that, then you can't have him in. Otherwise, why not? And otherwise also, why why does it take so long to make that decision? Why are we 3 days away and I'm talking to Overwatch League coaches and they have no idea what's going on?
That's crazy. That's the really tough part. I mean, I think that all those points are great, and it begs the question of whether this whole all or nothing type of approach, even just to the stages, which are 5 weeks, is really the correct way to do things, because there are going to always be these exceptions that just make this current type of method just bad for the audience. What could potentially happen now, where we literally will have 5 weeks of something that's not on the servers and people just won't relate, and it's just boring, right? Because we literally release something exciting on the actual game servers themselves, and it's not in the competitive, highly viewed broadcast. I mean, that's just really, really bad. That's going to happen. That's just going to continually happen just from here on out. So I don't know. I would propose coming up with something where you have different types of patches. You have a patch that's actually for just the general game and whatnot, and then there's this other delineation whether this patch, can immediately be rolled into Overwatch League or not. Because I don't think you should rule out every single patch. There's some patches that are just pretty minor, and it would not affect what everybody's doing right now, in game. It wouldn't totally nerf you wouldn't put in some crazy nerf to Zenyatta, right? When all the teams have basically built around that. But you would put something in that's just maybe a minor nerf to it. I think that would still be okay, and it wouldn't infect the integrity of just the past games in that existing stage. So I think it just they just need more flexibility in general.
Yeah, I think you're right, Chris, about that. It's kind of like a shitty damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, though. If you wait too long to patch, viewers are going to be unhappy. If you are too quick to patch and the meta changes, then the players are going to be unhappy. That's why I totally agree with you that I personally think Blizzard and Overwatch League should at least consider applying minor patches midway through the season. If okay, let's just say theoretically Brigitte launches as is for stage 4 coming up in just a couple of days, and she's incredibly dominant, and it creates a stale meta, and the players aren't enjoying it and the viewers aren't enjoying it. That change from 150 HP down to 100, and that change from 5 seconds to 6 seconds cooldown on Shield Bash might be what she needs to be tuned. I know from the player's perspective, they want to know what they're going into each stage, and they don't want to have to practice many different metas and learn new things super fast. It might benefit some teams more than others, but I still think it makes sense for Blizzard to make those kinds of changes that are more on the minor, more on the somewhat subtle side. Even if it's in the middle of a stage, I think that they should be open to doing it for sure. That's my perspective, at least.
Also, for a good chunk of the players, cry me a river. You've been on vacation for a week now, pretending oh, we've been scrimming on this old patch all the time. No, you haven't done anything. You've done PR stuff for yourself. You've flown out to the cities where your teams are located. Nothing has happened to you. You're not losing anything what your org hasn't already self-imposed on you. So, I don't know.
But I mean, okay, sure, but you can also say that the schedule just isn't very attuned for this either. Sure, these teams got to go and do their PR thing, and that's kind of what happened. They have to fly to the cities. That's what happens with the first seasons being in LA. And you really don't allocate time for them to even practice either. Not to mention just the release schedules. If you want Overwatch League to be a main kind of storyline for your game, Overwatch, then you need to plan your actual release cycles to be in tandem with the Overwatch League schedule too. You can't just ignore it and just say, oh, well, you have to adapt it. Esports just has to adapt to whatever we do for the game, because that's where all the, this is a game first before it is an esport. If you're going to actually make that kind of commitment to it, then you need to have that level of commitment too, in terms of releasing, big changes. This Hanzo change should either happen earlier or it shouldn't happen yet. They should have just waited, So I know it's tough, but still, like, I think moving forward, especially into season 2, like that stuff just needs to be perfectly timed. And maybe there should be a week. Maybe there should be an extra week between the stages. Give us more time. Give the players more time.
Mid-stage break to allow for patching.
Yeah, I mean, right? I mean, that's we've seen longer waits in like just some of the other Apex and things like that in the past. So I don't think it's too crazy for the fans, and I think it would benefit the players a lot too, the organizations too. Mm-hmm.
I have to say, like, obviously, I'm personally of the opinion that the Overwatch League schedule is conclusive to mental illness in many ways. Like, if every single team is having major burnout issues, then it's not the teams that have the problem, it's the system that is creating these problems consistently across all teams. Like, maybe one or two exceptions that have like impeccable structure, but coincidentally these teams also keep winning, so that helps with a lot of issues, right? If you just keep winning, it's all worth it, right? So
it comes to a screeching halt, like for a lot of these teams and players. Yeah,
definitely. So I don't know, it's I sort of lost my train of thought here, but yeah, I don't know, the entire idea that I got it back. I think you should just introduce longer breaks, because it's not only that it feels like to me that not only the players have burned out, but that viewership has also burned out in a sense. Like I can like, as someone that tries to watch every single Overwatch League match and then try to pick up on contenders too, I gotta say it's pretty tiring at this point, right? So it's like, obviously this is not the way it's meant to be watched, I guess, because I guess the league is built around a system where you are a fan of one team, which 2 of their games every week, and then you're done basically, and maybe you have 2 favorite teams, and then you watch 4 games, right? That's like 8 hours a week. That is not unreasonable for a hobby, but yeah, I don't know. It feels like also, I mean, you probably know this better than I do, FishStix, like the viewership is consistently going downwards, right?
I think it's been more stable than it seems. I think, like, if you looked at the stage playoffs, it bounced back up to 150, 160K, which, I mean, it is going down like marginally, but it's been relatively stable. I think people overestimate burnout.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely there were some matches recently that I saw some nights, we just don't get to 100. Like some weeks, there were a couple of nights we just don't get to 100K, and I mean, that's lower, like we were hitting 100K like every single night before, and seeing 80s here, 90s here. It depends on the team at times too. Like there's obviously teams that just people are just not as interesting just because they just don't contend at this point. Then you're not going to get as many. But overall, yeah, I think that it's just too much. Like there's just not any build up. Like these last few stages, like I just don't think that there's any external build up to it. The final match is always still hype, but nobody really cares. It's like, oh, okay, it's just another kind of stage finals, for Overwatch, so it's not that big of a deal. Like whether it's a marketing thing or it's a packaging thing or whatever, like we just need to do a better job of that. Like it needs to feel like a big deal that we have these finals.
Yeah.
And
I think I said this. Yeah. I probably said this in a couple shows, probably before, or like when Overwatch League was not even live yet. I personally think they should have done this. I think it would have been epic if each stage final was done in like a bigger arena in a different location.
Totally.
That alone, like, having a bigger crowd and like more production value, that alone, I think would have been enough to increase the hype quite a lot. At the same time, they're also trying to run the most ambitious esports league that anyone's ever tried to run. So like, I understand why they want to stick with the arena that has all the good lighting and the screens. But I think if they had gone to San Francisco, Austin, Texas, like if they had traveled around the US or even the world for each of these stage finals, it could have been pretty hype. But anyway,
yeah, they could have totally done
that. Not here nor there.
They could have totally done that. Come on, like that's not that hard to do. I mean, that's something that's been done many times, and we're only talking about how many teams? We're only talking about 4 teams, like going on this road show. That should absolutely, have been thought about. And this kind of moving stage too. They already have this kind of tear down stage that they could use too if they really, really wanted to at certain places. So, I think that would have been a great idea. I think being able to kind of see it as a live venue and kind of hype it up and just, all the marketing on it could just be centralized. Right now, it's just like, oh, it's the Sunday. It's like the playoff Sunday, and it's just like another day. Like that just happens, and it's obviously great for us, but nobody else is gonna watch it. So, all right, well, I think we gotta wrap up actually, because it's kind of winding down. But before we wrap up, I definitely want to give a shout out to our other sponsor today, which was Wing. If you're not familiar with Wing, it's a digital phone carrier that's it's definitely just like Verizon and AT&T, but it's actually a lot easier to deal with them just because like they have a much cheaper bill. So on average, it's like $35 a month. And it's the type of service where you don't pay like this monthly package for all this internet, which most of the time people don't use. You only pay for basically what you actually use, which ends up being a lot cheaper for a lot of people, unless you're watching Overwatch, I think, all the time, But if you're not, if you're generally just maybe sticking to maybe one Overwatch League day and doing that sort of thing, Wing's going to be definitely perfect for you. And really easy to switch over. You can keep your existing phone number, uses the same networks as all the big ones. You can actually sign up right now if you go to wingalpha.com actually no, it's just wingalpha.com, and then you use the code OVER just for the overview, and you'll get $25 off your first phone bill, which is really, really cool. So definitely go check out Wing today. And again, like, really cool that they're sponsoring the show. But I don't think we have time for Q&A today, guys. So we're going to have to wrap up just because got to get going. Hopefully we'll be able to do this like sooner than like waiting. I don't know how many weeks it was that we did last, but hopefully we'll be able to do it sooner than that. And hopefully cover stage 4 a lot more. But Yiska, you want to do some shout outs before we take off?
We didn't even have to make Yiska stay up until the sun rose this time.
Yeah.
It's true. You do some shout outs, Ben?
No shout outs.
No shout outs? Okay, cool. Ben?
Gotta love it. No shout outs in esports. So rare. I mean, I'm excited to see I'm excited to see what happens this stage, because we're only 2 days away from stage 4 starting, and nobody knows. At very, very least, I'm positive we're going to see Brigitte. What form will she be in? I don't know. I'm quite sure that we're going to see Hanzo too, but also not sure about that. Regardless, no matter what, we're going to see some major shifts in the meta. So I'm really interested to see, because on ranked, all of us scrubs have just been trying to figure this out, but we're going to see what the pros do with the new meta. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you guys for watching. Obviously, the two of you guys, this is like literally super last minute. So, definitely appreciate you guys hopping on and checking this out. Definitely find the VODs on youtube.com/ChanManV. You can find us on iTunes and Google Play and SoundCloud.com/ChanManV by searching Overwatch or the overview. And leave us a review if you enjoy the show, because it really helps out. And my last thing, we're doing a watch party for the Mayhem. Those of you that might not know, I and Alonzo, we've been running the Chaos Crew recently, which is like kind of the Mayhem fan organization. So we've been running like watch parties in Jacksonville and Tampa and Miami and West Palm and Orlando with the help of a lot of awesome hosts in these cities. And Mayhem's been awesome supporting us too. So definitely come check that out. I'm trying to figure out the venue right now, guys, for West Palm, because I had to change it. So it might be in Boca, but I'll let you know really, really soon. Just follow the Chaos Crew on Twitter, and you'll definitely see the details for that. But that's going to be it, guys, for the overview this week. So for Yiska, FishStix, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next time.